First tonight, Leicestershire's police chief has told us that tensions are still being stoked in the city, a year after serious disorder broke out. This weekend marks the anniversary of when hundreds of men from mainly Hindu and Muslim communities faced off across police lines. Well, we'll be hearing from Chief Constable Rob Nixon about how social media was used as a weapon to inflame the situation. First, though, our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball has been to Leicester, looking at the complex issues affecting the city.
A Saturday night of violence and hate on Belgrave Road. Police pelted with bottles as they separated hundreds of angry protesters from different South Asian communities. Here a flag was pulled down from a Hindu temple close to where religious symbols on homes had been vandalised during Hindu festivals. For many people who live here, that was a huge concern.
Everyone has the right to celebrate the festival. That's the cultural history, and we just want to encourage our children to do the same way. But as I told you, that peacefully, harmony.
The night that peace was shattered began on Green Lane Road, where hundreds of men chanted Hindu slogans as they marched past Muslim families' homes. It followed reports on both sides of young men being violently assaulted.
I saw them marching through.
How did that make you feel?
Terrible. Some sort of hatred going on. Hindus, Muslims used to stay together peacefully. We used to help each other.
What's changed here is a new wave of immigration from India. Thousands of people from Daman and Diu have settled in Leicester in the last few years, bringing different cultural traditions.
I'm doing you right.
This is part of the police response. Adam's team now patrols Spinney Hill Park late into the night after they asked people who live here how the tension began.
One of the feedbacks that we received after the disorders that we had was centred around antisocial behaviour in open spaces, in open parks, drinking-related nuisance, urination in public places. It's important that this park is open for everybody.
And here in Belgrave, where they're preparing for another festival season, Taruna's inviting recent arrivals from Daman and Diu for advice on how to integrate.
I think some of the issues were around a lack of understanding how festivals can be celebrated late into the night, or being able to celebrate sort of outdoors. When I came to this country in the 1970s, it was more within the home. They unintentionally didn't realise that other sort of groups and communities in the area would be affected.
Opinions are still deeply divided here about what made so many people from different communities afraid of their own neighbours, and how those divisions were stoked up on social media to make the tensions so much worse.
Well, Jeremy joins me now. Picking up that point you made about social media, why was it such a big problem?
Well, Sarah, because those posts were spreading like wildfire, really. Some of them simply weren't true. This was mixed with rumour, it was mixed with speculation, and the Chief Constable, Rob Nixon's been talking to me about how that had a huge impact in Leicester. And this wasn't just about provoking the violence, it was also about that, that majority of people who really didn't want anything to do with the trouble. What he says is this was making people on all sides very, very frightened. And mixed in with all this, you could see how some of these narratives were echoing what is deeply divisive politics over in India.
People are seeing things taking place on the subcontinent that enrages them, and that increases tension. And I'm deeply worried because you can use it to spread rumour, and you can also weaponise it. I think there are some people that continue to quite like the fact that there is a bit of tension, and they'll capitalise on that.
How much do you think what happened in Leicester was influenced from overseas, from India in particular?
Well, we know postings on social media that went out of the UK, and within 24 hours they were coming back into the UK, and they were being amplified, what we believe to be by bots. So the use of AI was taking a message, changing the messages or amending the messages, and then placing them back into the UK. So of course that could hit a huge audience.
So a year on, what lessons have been learned from all of this?
The bottom line is we're still waiting to find out, because it's been so hard to find anybody to investigate this who isn't seen as either biased against Hindus or biased against Muslims. And that's partly because this whole thing is so contentious. There are allegations flying around on all sides about extremism. There's that mix of claims about international politics as well. So it's like walking a tightrope, Sarah. Now, we are about to get more details of Lord Ian Austin's independent review. You might remember that was set up by the government after Leicester's city mayor had to abandon his own review into last year's disturbances. And I've been asking Peter Soulsby what he thought he got wrong.
I don't think it's a question of what I or any particular individual got wrong. I think it is the case that ourselves, the police and others were surprised to find some bunches of lads out on the street hurling abuse and more than that at each other. What does frustrate me is that the lessons have not been learned, because the review that was needed, the independent review that was needed, has not even begun yet.
Oh, interesting. What's happened to the people who were involved in those disturbances?
Well, we've had an update today from the police who made dozens of arrests on both sides. Now, so far, 4 men have been jailed. That's for public order offences or carrying knives. 28 others have been fined or received non-custodial sentences. Still big questions, Sarah, but this does now look far more complex than those initial theories we heard about cricket rivalries. And I think it's worth saying that when we were out speaking to the people on the streets of East Leicester, we did get a very, very clear message that people think things really have calmed down now.
Well, that's good to hear, isn't it? Jeremy, thank you so much.